The special meeting is called to order. Please stand for the pledge. Welcome, everyone, to our special meeting of the Community High School District 94 Board of Education. Mission statement, please.
Community High School will ignite a passion for learning, foster leadership and responsibility, and empower all learners to live their personal best.
Thank you, Rich. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Casey Mayer?
Here.
Mr. Nagel?
Present.
Ms. Chavez?
Here.
Ms. Murphy?
Present.
Okay, at this point, is there any public participation for our special meeting? Hearing none, we'll move into reports and information. So, Lynn, would you like to tell us everything we always wanted to know about interest-based bargaining, but we're afraid to ask?
But we're afraid to ask. Have no fear. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so this is interest-based bargaining. We do interest-based bargaining because it's more of a collaborative approach as opposed to a demanding type approach. So interest-based bargaining truly is based on collaboration. What we're trying to do is pull ourselves back from that old style confrontational demands, being shouted back and forth. And instead of having a situation like that where two people are across the table from each other or two parties are across the table, we actually do sit in like a U-shaped circle so we can all see each other. And I think if I remember correctly, Rich, don't we kind of alternate how we sit so that it's not like one team against another team. It is truly a group of people working together to solve problems.
This circle and every other seat is one side or the other.
Yes, exactly.
I should say one side, one group.
I know it's hard to get away from that because when I was going over this in my mind too, I get the side, but.
This is the at least third, maybe fourth contract that we've bargained using interest-based bargaining.
I think it is the fourth, two of the support staff and one for the teachers. So this will be our second one for the teachers. So again, this is kind of the old versus new. The old is, demanding what you want. This is what I want. And we are moving more towards well, why exactly are you want that? So you're demanding something which sometimes may seem ridiculous, like everybody should have a pony. But when you talk about the interests and what's behind the demands or what's behind their positions, when you really spend more time discussing that as opposed to what that actual demand is, you see, you get a little bit more knowledge and a little more understanding. So maybe they thought that would help with recruitment and retainment, and so we have discussions about that. So the old ways are positions and demands, and versus the new way, which is explaining our motivations through what our shared interests are. Implementing IBB does require a lot of trust and transparency. It does take more time in the beginning, and I thought about this earlier today too, Rich, that yesterday and with Dan, that was our fourth time to attend an IBB training. We probably don't need to keep going to IBB trainings. We kind of do have an understanding of how it works. But to me, one of the biggest things about the training is getting to meet new members on the other team, finding out who we're working with, and spending the day working together and developing a relationship and getting to know each other so that when we do actually get into the meat and potatoes of what we're there for, we feel comfortable with each other.
I disagree that it takes more time at the beginning because in previous bargaining, we would spend the first meeting or two sort of. So while we weren't orienting and building teams, we were getting grievances and issues from the association as to, sort of why they were going to move into the next phase. So I'd say if you look at, the status, we're probably more productive at the beginning by creating building the team and building the understanding than just hearing the issues from one side.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can understand it. Not having experienced that like you have, I can totally see where you're coming from on that. Skills for success, obviously active listening. There is really a lot of listening that goes on. Open-ended questions, we call them clarifying questions. Brainstorming without judgment, you'll see that there is a part of the process where really that's what we just sit and throw ideas out. No idea is a bad idea. And this helps us build a consensus, especially when it's without judgment. Even yesterday, we had a situation where somebody threw out an idea, and you'll see too how we go around and vote on things, and he voted against it. He wound up not liking that idea, which is all fine. That has happened more than once. So it takes a lot of collaboration, trust, and transparency. You're not focusing on who is talking about the problem. You're actually talking about the problem. You figure out what your interests are as opposed to what your demands and positions are. When you're brainstorming and coming out with these different options, these are your opportunity to make sure that it is going to be that win-win for both sides, that it is something that both sides can live with. And then again, the trust and transparency. So this is actually how it works, the actual process. So we go into a day of doing IBB already having shared our topics with the other party. So we share our topics so we kind of know, what's important on each side. But what really fleshes everything out is you don't just say, this is my topic, like I want a pony. What you need to do is back that up with a story. So whatever the other team is looking for, they need to build a story around that. Why is that important to them? Have they been getting a lot of chatter from the people on their team that they feel that this is something that's important? And that's on both sides. We have topics and stories as well. It's not just them saying, I need a raise and that's it. There are a lot of things that go into developing a good contract that's meaningful on both sides. So you have your topics, you build your stories, usually 3 or 4 topics per team. I'm going to call them teams, not sides. How's that sound? And then after somebody's had the opportunity to mention their topic and tell their story, then together you talk about interests. And you throw those ideas out as well. So everybody gives input on interests. Why you feel that story is impactful to people, and why you feel that needs to be changed or built into the contract somehow.
Just to clarify, every topic requires a story. If
Yes.
there's no story, there's no topic.
Correct.
And the team that brings the initial topic brings the story, but then the other team also may have a story that goes along with that topic. So the story could be two-sided on a topic, as well as the initial team, their story, their reason for bringing it.
Yes. So every topic can just have one story from that team, but a lot of times the other team will share a story pertaining to that topic as well. So that the topic and the story are the whats of the whole situation. The interests are the whys. When we talk about the interests, we do, after the end of it, when we've got a whole list of interests, we do go around the room and we talk about each one, and we make sure that everybody in the room agrees on it. And we do these things with thumbs up or thumbs down. So if somebody has an interest in having a pony for every teacher, maybe they feel that, oh, that's going to be fun. So everybody goes around the room. Does everybody think that that's going to be fun? And thumbs up or thumbs down. So everybody truly does have input on that. And then we take those shared interests, the ones that we all agreed on, that's what our focus is going to be. So next, we develop options, and this is where the brainstorming comes in. No judgment, like I said, with the options. This is more of the how. So this is more of how will we achieve what, while including the interests to make this topic, this story happen. So really, we are brainstorming for quantity, but then when we evaluate everything, again, with the thumbs up and thumbs down, we evaluate for quality.
So as an example, everybody gets a pony. That may be one team's idea of good time. Then the other team may say, well, not such a good idea. Who's going to clean up after the ponies? So as an option, you know, we weigh the implications of the options from both sides and determine if it's an option that everybody can live with, that moves forward. If not, whoever doesn't think it's a good option has to explain why it isn't a good option, and then we can work around some modifications to the option or just not move forward with that as an option.
Exactly, and you mentioned a very good point too, that anybody that has a thumbs down does have to say why. So you have to give a rationale for that. You just can't like vote no on everything just because you're having a bad day. So you have to go around, you have to say why my vote is no. So then that's how we reach a consensus for a solution to an issue. So this is kind of what it looks like when we're in the room. This is Lynn Adler. She's amazing. This is her 4th time working with us. When I talk about how we tell our topic and our story and everything we do, she writes on these two, what do you call these things, Dan? These big notepads, tablets. I didn't know what to call them, but they rip off and they've got a sticky side, so then she puts them all on the wall. And while this isn't the most flattering picture of Lynn Adler, this is exactly what happens. She puts them all on the wall. Dan helps her a lot. And before you know it, you know, after a couple of sessions, you know, we've got a lot of these papers all over the wall. At the end of the day, a couple people from each team will take pictures of them. They are saved. They are brought back out at the next meeting. This is truly a working environment where it's interactive all day long. We start out the day with this check-in process, which I think is really great. It kind of a bit of an icebreaker and kind of sets the tone for the day. Everybody, we all know who we are, obviously, after a meeting or two, but you have to say your name, how you are, like how you're feeling that day. I'm feeling a little rushed because I was stopped by the train on the way here, and then there wasn't parking, but then I felt a lot better because Dan was at the doorway. So, you know, we'll say things like that. Time constraints, feeling much better now because Dan was at the doorway. Reflections, so you typically reflect on the previous meeting. Oh, I thought we did really well last time. We covered a lot of ground. We're moving in the right direction. And what are your expectations about the meeting, you know, the new meeting, this meeting? And so you may say, I hope we continue this process. I hope we continue to work together well. And elephants. So this is kind of a big thing too. Typically, there are no elephants because this process is very open and transparent and very interactive. But sometimes you may go home and be left with a feeling like, I really felt uncomfortable with such and such that was said, or I maybe felt like something should have been handled a bit differently. Well, that's your opportunity to say, this is my elephant in the room. And so you have an opportunity to talk about that, and then we can all give input on it and kind of clear the air and move on.
Time constraints, one of the rules is we start on time, we end on time. So and the important thing is that everybody that's on the team is there all the time. Targeting methods, if somebody was missing. So if we had set a time of 7:30 to break, but somebody has to leave at 7 for some reason, we know that up front and we can pace ourselves so that at 7 we're able to break and leave. And run out of things to do before our designated time, then we can leave early. We don't have to stay. So that the time constraints is sort of a housekeeping commitment to organization.
Yeah, I like that too. And I also like the fact that because it is so interactive, it is truly a no cell phone zone. You know, so everybody truly is paying attention to what's going on. And a lot of what I like about it too is I feel like it's kind of like my time away from everything else, where I can truly just focus on this one thing that's very important without being pulled in different directions, you know, I mean, we're all multitasking, it feels like 24 hours a day. And this is one time where you can sit in one room with a group of people and just focus on one thing. And you don't feel like you have noise in the background. So that is a real plus, and I think that's part of why it's so effective. So just to reiterate, these are the benefits. You know, it promotes you working as a team as opposed to two adversarial groups. It does improve long-term relationships. You know, I've learned to, or I have met people that work within the school now that I feel like I have a relationship with, and you know, I pass them in the hallways and say hello, I know who they are. It does create a much more durable agreement, I think, because everybody is in agreement and everybody feels a part of it. Reduces conflict and gridlock because we are constantly checking with each other to make sure we're moving forward. Everybody contributes, and it is very much a safe environment for all this to happen. So, because we are partners, not opponents, it is definitely a consensus process. It does encourage collaboration, creativity, and again, the focusing on the common interests and the common goals is what makes it so successful. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Rich?
Yeah, just to elaborate a little bit, we're not always in the room together. We have the ability to break into smaller groups and discuss things, so that there are times where we may separate to discuss things that we need to do privately, and then we come back and discuss what we did, so we can do that. One of the options that, you know, we aren't locked in from a collaboration and transparency issue all the time. We do have the ability to have our private discussions on a team-by-team basis, and then we come back and we exchange information.
Yes.
As well as between meetings, a lot of times the teams will get together and talk about some of the issues that they need to discuss further and get more details on as well. So always, whenever we get back together, we want to be open, but it's not 100% agreement, and there's some separation opportunities to discuss things privately.
True. Yes, and we call that a caucus. So, you know, one team will leave the room and the other team will stay in the room, and then they can go out and have conversations about that. But then that's why we come back here several times during the process, and we'll consult with the rest of the board to let you know where things are going, and are we going in the right direction? Are these things that, you know, everybody else feels comfortable with? What I didn't mention too, though, Rich, is after the options and when we talk about the solutions and we agree on something, then we do assign a couple of people, usually one from each team, to write up a conceptual agreement. So that's taking those ideas that are on the papers that are stuck on the walls and turning it into contract style language. So we make a conceptual agreement or a tentative agreement, and then when everything's done, it all gets put together into the contract, into the appropriate language, and then it gets ratified. And then that's when the Teachers Association votes on it, and then we vote on it as well.
And of course, nothing is guaranteed until it's ratified by both sides. So,
Correct.
So the conceptual agreements and the tentative agreements are still subject to discussion and ratification by both
Which is
sides.
why we don't talk about a lot of the details outside of that room, because things can change, and it's really kind of a moving situation until it's all finally done, and like Rich said, until it is ratified. But we don't want to put out bits and pieces of what could potentially be in the contract, because we could maybe go through something and then maybe have to come back to a previous situation because of things that change. So I know everybody kind of, a lot of the teachers, I'm sure, or the support staff when we're working on their contract, want to hear what's going on, what's happening. It's really important, I feel, to kind of keep everything in that room and just let them know what topics we're working on. So if people are ever upset and feel like they need to know more, and I would just say everything's a process, and we are working through it, but happy to tell you the topics that we are discussing.
At the end of each session, both teams can put out a report or something very generic that we're moving forward. We talked about these things, but not the details and things like that. The association tends to be more concerned with the details of what's going on. And we have to be careful not to talk about anything publicly from our standpoint, because, like you say, things may change. You agree on something, and then something else gets resolved, and that has some implications. Have to be a little careful on what we say publicly. Of course, we'll keep you informed from what's going on from our standpoint in closed session, with the expectation that it stays in closed session.
Exactly. Any questions about anything? No? A lot of fun.
Since we have a little time, the way we used to bargain is both sides would come to the table. One side would have their requirements, and it would be way up here. One side would have their requirements, we way down here, and we just go back and forth for months and months and months, knowing where we're going to meet, and everybody knew pretty much where we were going to wind up anyway. But we went through the motions a number of times. We had to get mediators and people from the labor group, federal, stalemated. One of the values of the IBB is that we have a built-in facilitator that everybody has trust in, and the facilitator will help us sort of see the forest for the trees a lot of times, and remind us of what we're supposed to be bargaining about, and the value of getting along certain direction, and avoiding getting roped into the mud where there's things that really aren't contractual. That really isn't something you can build into a contract, because it isn't something that could be grievable or controllable. And we'd say, okay, so we would reduce our discussion to stuff that really fits a contract, which is the working conditions, wages, what are the other, three or four specific things that are appropriate to a contract. Compensation, and things like that. So sometimes we'll get roped into some procedure or some outside the contract kind of thing, and we want to avoid spending part of the contract.
Very, very true. But I will add to that it is a nice opportunity, though, to hear, that they brought up a topic, and maybe it does not fit into the contract, but it is a nice opportunity to find out why that's something that they brought up as a topic, and hear their story. And then we still may talk about interests and things and decide that, no, it doesn't belong in the contract, but maybe there are some things we can do to help out with that situation, and maybe it should go to a different type of committee or something. But it is a nice way to find out that maybe there are situations that need looking at more, even though it doesn't fit into a contract. And Lynn is very good at that, at keeping us on track, and staying within the steps that we are in the process, because you don't want to jump around either. We don't want to bring out a topic and then all of a sudden everybody's got solutions. Oh, we should do this. No, we need to back up. We need to hear the story. We need to find out our shared interests, and then brainstorm, and then, so she keeps us on track in that respect. And it's the added benefit that we're not the only school that she works with. She works, all over the state, I think, Rich? But she's got a pretty wide area that she works in. And a lot of times she'll give us that input. Oh, I've worked with such and such school, and this is how they handled this situation, and this is kind of the trend that's going around with contract negotiations these days. So that is an added benefit of working with somebody that's so experienced
background was she was a Uniserv rep for many, many years. And when we first talking about IBB and her name was a little bit of concern, well, is she going to, sort of be leaning towards background, but she's very, very fair and very objective.
And she brings candy. So really.
Candy's important.
That's the win-win. I mean, you thought it was the contract, the win-win is the candy.
Definitely thank you for that presentation. What really stands out to me from how you present the system is the levels of trust and respect that both sides are sharing with each other. And any successful negotiation, the outcome is you're going to have a contract. But it sounds like this kind of interest-based bargaining process, you get the contract, plus you've also worked on refining that relationship, which pays dividends down the road for both teams.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, finalizing a contract doesn't necessarily mean that both sides won. But the whole objective here. Their hands and say, all right, we're done, just sign it.
And there's an increased level of understanding, like even if certain things may not be specifically addressed, both teams have a deeper understanding for what are the concerns that the other team has about these things, and that can be very useful going down the road.
Any questions for?
I have one. At some point in this process, or towards the end, or at the very end, is there a legal piece where there's an attorney for both teams that looks over that language that's been used in the contracts? Or is this enough without?
Well, there is definitely an attorney does review it to make sure that, all the language is correct. But just one attorney, right, Dan?
So, yeah, anytime we start looking at language and preparing that language, and Carrie and us, we work closely with the association team to work up that language, and then we bring that language back to one of our sessions, and then we'll TA that tentative agreement. And before that even happens, it's going to the attorney, our attorney, the district's attorney, to review, make sure that it's legal, make sure that it's understandable, things of that nature.
And they also have one on their side that would do the same? I would hope.
They do, they have resources.
Okay.
They do have resources. They have a Uniserv director that will review it as well. And so
It's not like
up
we
for
have
review.
two attorneys that are part of the teams. They're very much in the background, and they very much don't come in until the contract is all written, and then their job is to review it and make sure it's written properly.
Which isn't the way we had done it in the past. Concern on both sides. Court staff had the Uniserv representative. Just as some support. Know what they are able to do, but that doesn't mean that they may not call. Gotten away from trying to have too many third parties. But the lawyers are going to look more from the standpoint of the legality. Are we meeting the state laws, the federal laws, and things like that? Happens in the culture of the school.
Any other questions or thoughts about what we've heard?
Thanks.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. At this point, is there a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we got about half an hour till the real meeting.